G'day and welcome back for more Space Engineers Survival. Today the plan is to build the bottom of the new solar tower, so it's got a little bit of a functional sort of area, I guess, or more of an attractive area. I kind of haven't really thought about what functions I could include in a little base around there, other than a station platform and maybe some sort of viewing area for people who work at the solar tower. But I thought, before we go to that, I'd talk a little bit about what I'm planning on doing with the base end of things. And the tram gave me an idea to give an additional function to this end of the corridor. I could probably, and it might even make more sense for me to build a tram station in, say, this bay here, since the solar tower is off that way, roughly. Yeah, that would get me a little bit closer and it might be the most sensible way of doing things, but I kind of want to leave these bays free for vehicles. And if I occupy one with a tram, then I don't have this spot for, say, a tank, which is kind of what I want this spot to be for. These two down before the goose, I still haven't decided what I might use them for, but, you know, with the way things go, there's a reasonable chance I will come up with vehicles that will belong there. So, this spot seems to be a good option. I'm pretty sure there's plenty of room before I might pop out over the surface if I go this way. So, I should be able to go out this way. Maybe even... Let's have a look. Yeah. I've got a fair bit before I'd get to the bin chicken spot. But I probably want to just go down so that I can go back and underneath the main bit of the hangar. And that's because the solar axe marker there, that is at the base of the new solar tower. And a few people said it looked like a battle axe, and I absolutely have to agree. It really does look like a giant battle axe in its fixed vertical position. So I'm just going to leave that marker as the solar axe. I think it kind of works. But what this means is that is 1.39 kilometers away. When we've dug out here and gone underneath, we're going to need to build enough track to get that distance. And what I think we're going to do is go straight, flat and level, at least until we are... Where's the back of this? I suppose sensibly probably go to like 1.25 kilometers. That'd give me an extra 50 meters beyond this wall so that I wouldn't accidentally pop up somewhere where I don't want to. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the track, I'm going to make a new section of track that is turned slightly and angled up slightly. I suspect that if I went dead level with gravity, I would probably end up a few hundred meters below the solar tower. And that would be a lot of power connection to make to the surface. I think it might be much more challenging and therefore exciting for us to try and build a slightly sloped tram line. It's going to involve some interesting track constructions. The way that these trams work, I have not been able to figure out a method to effectively transition from one slope to the next. So what I'm actually going to do is have the track move with the tram on top. So the track will move and align to the next section, and then the tram can just drive straight off again. And if I'm going from flat to slightly angled to my right, and slightly angled upwards, that means I'm probably going to need a piston and 2 rotors to achieve that effect, which could be a bit exciting. I am interested in seeing how well I achieve that challenge, and that challenge is going to have to be done before I even get to building that section of track, because I actually plan on making the tram both drill out its own tunnel and, assuming it doesn't cause all sorts of pain in terms of how long it takes, I'm going to make it weld its own track too. And yes, I have a plan for how that's going to work. The reason it might be a pain is those chunks of rock that you see whenever I drill, those graphical particle effects, they'll stop me welding the bottom piece of track. And that means I wouldn't be able to move forward until that's welded, so I'd have to wait for them to despawn sometimes, which is so annoying and something I really don't want to have to deal with. So what I'm going to do while I debate on that, and probably not an issue I'm going to run into for a couple of episodes yet because there are a lot of things that need to be built beforehand, I'm going to load up the Nugget with some components so that we can build a few things over at the solar tower. Oh man, got to turn off the HUD for this. Look at that. I love the effect that those spotlights have created for the tower. I love the fact that the solar panels are lost in the dark and all you see is this white beam shooting into the sky. That has ended up so much cooler than I thought it was going to be. Oh, so happy. Love it when things work out and I haven't even really planned them. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get rid of these extra bits that I built on because I don't think that's the style I'm going to go for here. I've got a base that's quite industrial. I've got the silo, which is terribly depressing. So I thought I'd go for something that's more modern and feels like the kind of place that you might want to visit because it's got awesome views and it's got really wide open spaces. Just go for a totally different feel on this end of things. Since it's isolated from the others, it shouldn't matter that it doesn't follow the same style rules. The first thing I'm going to do is weld up the blocks that I absolutely need to keep and get rid of any that I don't, so that I've got the minimum starting point. And I do want all of these blocks that are going to sit at the bottom of the solar tower, occupying that space that I deliberately tried to hide the rotor in. Now I do need to be careful here that I don't do something silly and collapse the whole thing by grinding off blocks. I suspect I wouldn't actually end up making the tower collapse, since it's probably a large enough grid that it'll stay supported, as I would have to manually turn it into a station to make it collapse. But best not to test that theory on something that took me this long and cost me this much to build. I'd like to be able to get up to this level where the spotlights are. I don't think, as I said before, that I'm going to actually make it so you can get to the top of the tower, but at least I'd like to be able to stand up here and kind of have some roof access. So I might build that into the design first before I start adding anything else, since I can probably work out the rest of the design around it. And maybe, since the base is off that way, I should try and have some sort of station platform area that roughly faces in that direction so that it can link up to the extended tunnel neatly, rather than needing a 90-degree bend or something like that at the end. So how about we go out this far, make a nice flat edge, and what I might go with are these 2x1x1 slopes, one at each end, and some slabs going across. 3 far enough? Or do I go 5? I think I go 3. Oh, yeah, that can work. Then I'm going to go with... Do I go with... Maybe I'll do this. Make it all nice and curved across the top. So this will be where the actual tram comes up to. If I create a space like that. So in between these beams that are running across like this, we're going to have glass. And that way we'll be able to look straight up at the solar panel through the roof of the station here. What I'm thinking this particular station will be is not the battery loading yard. This is just going to be for passengers that want to go to the solar tower. It's not going to be where the battery hookups happen. The battery hookups are going to happen underground. So we'll have a branching system where we'll either have the battery trams or the passenger trams able to travel to. And that means we'll need like a shunting area sort of thing. And I realize this is sounding crazy complex, But if I'm going to the effort of building a tram, I'm going all out. Yeah, I think that'll look nice having a little bit that sticks out above the glass. So for this area, what I'm going to do is place down these 1x2 or 1x1s, and I've also got some diagonal glass. I don't tend to use much glass that's bigger than these pieces. The reason is, and you can see it kind of here, I've gone with the 1x1s in the middle because we've only got an odd number of blocks across. And if I went with the 1x2s, then went with 1x2s, I'd be left with the 1x1s on the side here. And I think it looks nicer having them in the middle. If I had 2x2s or 2x3s, I'd have to think about that level of detail even more and worry about how they'd transition into a spot where I might have a bunch of diagonal glass next to each other. And that makes life a lot more difficult. It's not impossible to design nicely around glass that way, but it does make it a much greater challenge. So rather than give myself that challenge, I usually choose to just go, nah, I'm going to stick with 1x1 lines, and then where I can, I'll stick the 1x2s in places that they look sensible, rather than struggling with the larger pieces. If I have a plan in mind and I can make all of my windows fit just those larger pieces and no other bits needed around them, that's when I use them. Because then they really get that impact of this big wall of glass rather than something with a lot of structural components included in the window. A difficult part here is to figure out exactly where I want the floor level. I'm kind of tempted to just go with this bit because it means no drilling of the top of the hill here. But it would be potentially advantageous to drop it one block so that it makes it easier to do something with this diagonal wall space at the end here. Or maybe instead of what I was thinking was this area where I'm hovering right now, it would be indoors. Maybe I just leave these diagonals and straight sections as structural supports rather than actually making them part of the building. That could certainly work. At some point soon, I am going to need to build a little drone that has a small amount of cargo storage, just enough for a few bottles of hydrogen so it can fly them to me, so I don't need to build the ramp like I did to get up to the Nugget last time. As you can see, I'm flying back because I just went home to grab a few more bottles and decided that maybe this time 3 bottles in my inventory would be worth it, even though they take up a huge amount of space. Now, I think we go with our wall blocks there. Then, to make this a bit more interesting, I'm going to put a row of half blocks just outside. There's another small advantage to putting these half blocks here. Because I'm going to be putting glass on this row, instead of having it on the inside and occupying this cube here and meaning I can't put anything on it, if I put the half blocks out here, even if I didn't have these diagonal pieces, I'd be able to place the glass like this. Is that the right way? Yeah, like this, which is exactly what I'm after. Actually, you know what? I'm making this a double long one. It gives me the flexibility to make the tram track section quite large and bring up maybe more than just a passenger tram. Maybe I could bring the battery bits up here. We'll see how that goes, but it does give me that option. And I kind of like the idea of making this a little bit longer. I quite like how the roof structure has come together. I think it'll look quite nice. Plus, there is nothing bad in this situation with this building at the base of the solar tower ending up relatively large. If it's going to look anything but ridiculous next to the solar tower, it's going to have to be pretty sizable itself. Looking at this, I think I've already seen what's about to come next. I'm going to be making this 3 sections long. I think it'll be funny with just 2. I kind of want to maintain that small degree of symmetry with the tower. the idea for this extension would not be to continue being part of the platform, but be sort of a completely filled in section. So this will actually look different from the inside, but from the outside we'll still have the same structural components. So we'll still give the external part of the building the right look that I'm after. If you're looking at this and going, how's he, this doesn't make sense. How is this going to work? I can't work out what on earth a station like this is going to serve in terms of a function for an underground tramway. Well, yeah, kinda. Makes sense. You should worry about that. But I do have a plan. And the plan is a tram elevator at the end of the railway that will bring the tram and its rail up to this level so that you can disembark at the solar tower. I really, really think I just built it this way, or I wanted to build this way, because I wanted to build sort of a grand tram station sort of design with lots of glass roof, and didn't really want the spot where you stop to be all underground. So even though it's crazy and it doesn't really make a lot of sense to do it this way, I think it's going to be cool enough that you're not going to be paying attention to the fact that it doesn't make sense when you're on it. You're just going to be paying attention to the fact that you're on a tram and it's delivering you to a massive solar tower. And when I say delivering to, I'm not thinking of automating this thing. It's potentially possible, but I'm thinking this is going to be manually controlled. I reckon by the time we are done, we are not going to be wanting to spend the time trying to automate it. I think we're just going to be wanting to be riding around in it. Okay. I think that's looking pretty grand in terms of a design. And now, what on earth are we going to do with these end bits? I want glass on them as well, but I've kind of created myself a bit of a challenge here in terms of how to make an end cap that's not just going to completely destroy the aesthetic integrity of the rest of the build. I might fiddle around with some of these half blocks and see if this triggers an idea for how to put it all together. Because I do want this line to continue the whole way around. When I've got a design like this where I've got an area that I'm very happy with, but I don't know what to do with the end, what I'll often do is, like I've done here, grab the line that I want to continue from it, or a section that I really like, continue it out and bring it around, just to give me some sort of guide of where it might stop. It's probably not going to finish there, but it gives me an easier time visualizing exactly what's going to happen here. So by putting that there, I can kind of go, yeah, that's going to be about far enough. And then let's maybe go with a slope there, and then we'll bring this down to the ground. We'll have a look at what that gives us. So yeah, I've probably come in one block too early. Or I could think, maybe I want these lines to stick out beyond it. I don't, but you know, I could think that. There we go, let's do the other one and then we'll have a bit of a look from a distance and see if we're happy with this. And then I'm going to need to go get more hydrogen again. So that's continued our half block line, which will support our windows. Then we've got these two supports that come out the end, and I think more so than when I had them a block in from there, so when I had them on this block and this block, I think having them that extra one out makes your eye not desire those lines to continue down the length of the build quite so much. Maybe if we had the blocks, putting them all the way out here, or I suppose I could drop this one block in height and move it out to this row, which will have armor, and this row which doesn't, but would certainly bring it down. Yeah, actually, you know what? Let's do it. I think this is going to look better. Let's do it on one, and then we'll fly back and see whether it does work better. Instead of having it up at the height of these cross beams, which does make you kind of... It sort of drags your eye to wanting it to continue. If instead we start here, and since we're starting on a square block, we can actually make this crazy simple to build. Or we can make it a bit more interesting. Ooh. That's a shape of armor I've not tried to use before. I think that could work. It's going to be interesting to see what I do with the windows around it, but I think that could work. Oh! Actually, I think that'll work really well with the windows, because you can put these diagonal pieces there and there. We've got armor on both sides of it. Yeah. Yeah! I like it. It's kind of a mini curve. I think it works out pretty well. Hopefully the armor textures line up well enough that it looks okay once it's welded up once it's welded up too. The good thing about the way I'm building this and the fact that we're on a planet with an oxygen-rich atmosphere is that I don't have to make sure that this is airtight. Making glass airtight is quite the challenge sometimes. So I think what we might do is just keep this simple. Go like that. And when I say simple, it's kind of relative terms. And then we can just put some diagonals in here. Now, this is the bit I don't know what I'll do with. We don't have a block that just has that corner chopped off that's the size of this half slope light armor block. So, what shall I do here? I don't think I want it sticking out quite that far, but I also don't think that this is going to work having that corner sticking out. Maybe this is the best compromise we've got. Go with that slope there and there, making it sort of rounded, which will match the rounded look that I've got in some of this. I think that's probably the best solution. We'll go with that. Cool. So that is one big glassed structure. This far end, I think, is going to become our entryway for the whole structure. So it's not going to be an entryway that lines up with the solar tower. I think what we'll do is we'll come in to the front here. Now, that's going to be an interesting thing to try and design, since windows and doors don't tend to go so well together in Space Engineers. So what I think I'm going to do is bring those across a little way to there. Try and put our doors in the center here. If I popped the doors on the side, say, let's just actually do it so that it's easier to explain what I'm thinking. I kind of want to use these doors because they don't occupy the whole block. So a door like that, and maybe a second door beside it. The problem we have is we will need to have a full cube on top to transition between these blocks that are in the center. And yes, I wouldn't have that problem with the sliding doors, but I'd still have this whole cube occupied with the sliding doors. So if we go with them, the problem we run into is we'd have this cube occupied, then we'd have glass on this surface, and this whole cube sticking out into the platform area, which would look weird. And that's why I didn't want to use them. But then, once I put these blocks in here, do I go with armor blocks all the way to the roof? And do I then just transition here and put a cube in like that? I could do that, and I could then possibly put some glass to cover these two corners. And it might look... Actually, it might look alright. But what I'd probably need to do is get rid of this slope and put another full cube in there. Which actually could work. But I think, now that I've almost convinced myself not to do what I was thinking, I think I'll go to the other design that I had in mind, which was to bring these all the way across. And then in the center, we will place a pair of doors separated by a cube. And we'll remove those, putting pillars down like this. I'll leave these slabs in the middle, and I'll cover them on the outside with glass, but on the inside leave them exposed, which I think will work reasonably well. I can then, with a setup like this, I could go with doors on either side, one there and one there. Leave a big glass window in the middle. Yeah. What I thought originally was to put 2 doors, one there, and then kind of armor this up in the center, but this might actually work better. No, it won't. No, it won't. Because I don't know that I like this. Because I'd need to have cubes there and there. Then it'd just be a single triangle of glass, which I think will look a bit strange. Let's not do that. And I do want that triangle piece of armor there. So instead we'll go with 1, 2, 3 across there. Door and door. And if I decide to change those to sliding doors because I want the glass in them, I can easily do that. We can then go with our glass up here. Dang it. There we go. So it'll be that sort of design. Then, like we have at the other end, I'm going to bring out some arches to kind of emulate supports. It comes off this row, doesn't it? And by placing these arch supports in there, I've kind of created a bit of a space between the door and those arches. And this is where I need to talk about the stairs and how we would approach them. If I had the doors out here on the sides, I'd kind of be left with the only option being, well, the only 2 options I can think of right now being having catwalks all the way along the front here and stairs off the side, which might look okay, or having stairs that come up from the middle. Now, one of the reasons I don't want to do that is this slope runs away from the building quite rapidly from the front, and I think to get stairs to actually transition smoothly to the ground will be a very large structure, and I kind of wanted to use the 2x1 stairs, not the 1x1 stairs, so it wouldn't actually work there at all. But what I can do with the doors centered here is I can actually get our 2x1 stair. Where is it? There we go. Start with one just here. Except that I put the glass in the wrong spot to do that. Which is unfortunate because I'd otherwise be able to use that block on the inside. But it's the way it is. Then back to the stairs. So stair there. Stair there. And should be relatively easy to get the other ones in. Now, this transition between the ground and this stair is not actually smooth. To get that smooth, what I'll do is pop a couple of armor blocks here, and they only need to be here temporarily. One, because the stair is eventually going to be locked to the voxel anyway. But 2, although you can't place the stairs like this, you can get them to lock onto the stair behind them once you have placed them. So that there. And the reason I want to use an open stair is I don't want this railing to run away and into the ground, because I think it looks weird when you do that. Because why on earth would anyone run a railing right into the floor? It's just strange. It just creates a trip hazard. One of the nice things I like about Shaustal's modifications to his railings on these stairs is they stick in, which means they make sense when you put them against a row of armor blocks, rather than before where they kind of melded with the blocks a bit, so it didn't work quite as nicely. But now it works really nicely and I'm very happy with it. And now this becomes our entryway to the station. So we can walk up and go through these doors. I think that'll look pretty nice. Get rid of that because I don't think that's going to stay there. And underneath, what I'll do is pop in one more slab and then pop in one of these to transition before we go to the stairs because I can't have those slabs running the whole way. But I think hiding the transition underneath the catwalks will work nicely. Full armor blocks to make the floor. And I want this section to be pretty much completely filled. I'll go right up to that support there. And then I'll leave this other area completely open for now. Actually, not completely open. I will put some half armor slabs here because that wall is going to be fully enclosed. But the reason I want to leave this open is to give myself a bit of leeway at this end of things. I'm going to find it very difficult to drill this tunnel as accurately as it kind of needs. And if I've got two ends, both of which are fixed, and I have no ability to move them whatsoever, then it's not going to be very easy to line them up perfectly. So having a bit of extra space at this end to fudge it a little bit and to just fudge this end, the design at this end so that it all works will be nice. And I'll probably try... Actually, I won't be able to do it at the other end because the other end's going to be where I start. But I wanted to have some guide as to where I was going to end up. It may ultimately be smartest for me not to weld this up initially and just to leave this as scaffolding until I actually bring the tram line all the way here. So that'll be our little entry foyer area, and I reckon I'll put some couches in here, some tables and things. I want this place to really feel totally different to the other two bases. And I think it might be cool to have an I want to be able to get up onto the roof here. And I want to put... where are they on the hopper? There. I want to put these railings around places so that you could imagine people can walk up here and it's relatively safe and blah, blah, blah. But I want to kind of either have an internal stairway or, since I just looked at this and realized we only have 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks to get up there, I could actually build a single piston elevator. And I really like the idea of having a glass elevator car that looks out this way. I think that'll be kind of cool. Plus, it'll give me something to fill in this space with since I really don't know what else I could have here other than a control room and maybe like tourist-ish facilities. We might come out all the way to here and then I'll just pick where I'm going to put the elevator in the middle. Oops. The reason I've brought it all the way out here is that I do need to come out past this spotlight because I really like the effect that these spotlights have on the tower. I kind of almost don't want to light the tower any other way. I really love the fact that the solar panels get lost in the dark where the tower stands out. I also want to build some archway supports that come out from these sides as well. I may even follow that design that I've done down this end and do these little curvy bits rather than just a squared off one. Wonder if I should curve off these ones as well. Yeah, I think I will do that. Getting sidetracked, but with design like this, if you come up with an idea, it's kind of good to do it when you think of it. Or at least if you're me, because if you don't do it when you think of it, you'll forget it. I want to build this elevator here with a similar idea to how I built the one for the elevator tutorial. And that means using either a piston or a rotor to create a little bit of a gap, but using whole blocks against whole blocks because that gap allows them to move. I need to have the piston arranged in such a way that it can push or pull the elevator car the whole way up to the top. And I really would, in an ideal world, like to have this without drilling any of this ground away. So, do we have enough space down here in which to build it so that the piston can push the whole way up? One end of the elevator is going to be a slight misalignment because the piston that I use for the elevator is going to start slightly higher or slightly lower than the block that it's against. But that's just something we'll have to live with. Because to adjust for that would take a lot more space, and I don't think it's really necessary. So, rotor. Piston. Now, if we then have a line of slope, I reckon, like that, then a full block, then we can actually build our elevated car. So I think the car should have those, that one there, then we can go with a slab, then our corner piece, and maybe we go with a couple of these for the bit that sticks out the furthest. Then use these little corner pieces to fill in the gaps. And this is that little lip that I was talking about. Walking from here to here, there's that little bump, but it's minor. That's not a big issue. Then all the piston has to do is extend up to its almost full height, and it will line up perfectly with this upper floor as well. One of the nice things about this block being positioned here is I could actually put a button inside the elevator. I wouldn't need a sensor. I could use a button to go up and down. And it would make sense because the wall's there. I think it'll make more sense at the top end if there's a door. I was just thinking, if I have this open, I'm going to have to build a whole structure up here for the top end because I'd need a door on the upside too. And I think it might be nicer to not have that. So we'll place a door in, then maybe we'll just put a half slab there. I think the elevator car will still feel big enough. And also this lip will make a bit more sense because we've got the little structural bits around the door. Yeah, I think that'll work. Could still have our button against the wall here. Then go with some diagonal glass pieces there. There. Why did you do that? You should have had enough torque to carry this much weight. Surely. This is why I don't usually do this with rotors. I think I'm just going to replace this whole thing and replace it with a piston because it prevents this whole rotation issue. So let me just jump ahead to when I fixed this little problem. And if you're wondering why, if you've watched the tutorial and you're wondering why I suggested using pistons, this is it. Rotors have a tendency to not behave. Plus, if you are building without power, I know I'm building with power, but if you were building without it, you can do that with pistons. Okay, and now we pretend that that disastrous flotation with using rotors to build the elevators was just a nightmare. Good. I might even be able to weld this up and get it working. Yeah. Now I wonder if I've got enough parts on me to build a button. Okay, so this should work. Let's just make a bit more of a floor here. So with a very, very simple setup, we should be able to walk on, press our button. The elevator will very slowly extend. I can certainly make this quicker. And when we reach the top, although I'll probably have to remove maybe 10 centimeters or 20 centimeters off the top, we should be able to walk straight out. Nice. Simplest elevator ever, while also looking half decent. I'm not sure about these edge pieces here. Not stoked with how they look, to be honest. But I don't really have an alternative method to get the glass to stick on the outside. We'll see how it looks once, you know, we've got walls and fences and things around here. But that's cool. We've got an elevator that can look out over the sunset. Very happy. Very, very happy. Was going to do stairs, but I definitely think this has worked out to be a much cooler idea. Don't really like how this is kind of floating out here, but I wonder if we could improve that by getting some of these around it. Kind of encasing it in a little armor pod like that. I wonder if it'll let me place anything underneath. No, didn't think so. Don't think it'll even let me place these. Yep. Stuck. Oh! Not stuck. Very much not stuck. If I go grab some large steel tubes from the nugget, I can build that other piston, extend it out, build the stuff, and then bring it back in. No, sun is setting. I want to quickly do this. Let's try some risk. There we go. Thought so. Because it was getting slightly pushed off axis. If we increase the maximum impulse off axis, we get a much greater ability to push it out. Don't know if that looks better or worse yet, but it is what it is. I think it'll give us something to play with anyway. It certainly gives us an ability to mess with that armor later to make it look a bit more interesting. And now that the sun is setting, I think it's probably time to say that we've done enough planning on this little base for the day. I kind of wanted to get as much of this done in the first day as I could. So particularly this station section, I wanted to know roughly where it was. And what I will do is put a GPS marker here for, let's call it Solar Axe Station. There you go. Don't need to show you. Oh, don't need to show you on the HUD anymore. Do want you. Yeah. Love the idea of this elevator car. So happy with how that turns out. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Not sure what to do with this wall yet, or what to do with this section, but sure, we'll come up with things once we get the tramway built. I don't want to weld everything up here yet. There's a reasonable chance I will want to do some modifications when I get the tramway here. So I don't want to weld everything up just to have to grind it down and move it again. It's going to be much easier to move it if I leave this all as scaffolding for the moment. And now, let us fly away back home as a stinging adversary comes in to assault the base. It is a pity to have brought all those components in the nugget and not lay them down into the base, but it does feel silly to weld it all up when I'm not 100% certain of how it's going to stay. Now there is one thing I'd like to do in the base before we start building the station down here, and that's actually connect up the Pelican trailer to the base. There are a bunch of components that it's got, and I reckon I'm right now constructing a bunch of those same components to fill in the gaps in my inventory that I've used up with the construction of this tower. And that may allow me to spend a bit more time with the production facilities making only solar cells and not really having to worry about the other stuff. For this connector, I thought we would do things slightly differently. I want to try a few different connection styles in these bays, and then once I've got the one that I think looks best and works best, that's the one I'll stick with. And what I thought I'd try for this one was an advanced rotor elevated up on the wall rather than having it all the way down on the floor. So with the small head there, we should be able to fit our conveyor junction on like before, then our tubes, and get it out to the middle and drop down. The advantage of having the rotor up here on the wall is I can then use these parts, put the pipes against the wall down to the floor, and I will obstruct the ability of the goose. Oh, well, I won't obstruct the goose quite as much, which is probably a big, big benefit, since I won't have anything for the goose's wheels to run into while I'm trying to reverse and get into the specific position I need. The other side of things that I should probably do is have something that looks like it's supporting this. Maybe these. each side, and then I can put a normal slope. Then I can put a normal slope in here. No, not there. There. I think that'll make the rotor look a bit supported. We've got the conveyor system. Then we've just got to get underneath the floor and connect it up with the rest of the base. Easy. Alright, should have probably made these yellow as I placed them. That was a bit of an error. Let's just paint them up. There we go. Let's grab our charcoal grey. I know I could put a whole piece in here, but I just kind of like the look of the rubber accordion styled thing. And now, we are hooked up to the base from there. In fact, let's just make sure that we actually are. Yep, we are. So let's see if we can connect up. I think I may need to just come up with a new name for the connectors on the trailers. So connector. Why don't we call this Goose Trailer Base Connector? The reason I want to name them the same is so that I can have the same control on my hotbar, and I don't need to have a different control on my hotbar for each separate trailer, because that's just silly. So let's rename this one. Then what we can do is grab our hotbar where we've got the other connector, and we will remove that. Though for some reason it's not letting me. There we go. Now we can put this one as a switch lock. And that should set things up the way we need it. So that when I connect to the other trailer, that control will still work because the name of the connector is identical. So that was just one of those little jobs that I really wanted to get done. I know I haven't done the styling around the conveyor tube, but that will come later. At least the functional part of this docking is done. And I think, in a lot of ways, I prefer that over having the tower, the vertical portion of this tower. It may not be as easy to design one for the Butterballs trailer as it was for that, since I don't think I can line it up with one of these pillars. But I could always add an extra pillar behind it that just supports the crane. And I think, I don't know. You guys let me know which you think looks better. And obviously, ignore the fact that this one doesn't have the little armor detailing on it yet. But I think I prefer this one, but I'd be open to ideas as to why this one might be better. Or other ideas of how we could try it for the next trailer eventually. Hopefully I'll remember them by the time we get around to that. Next time, we are going to start on the station at this end. And hopefully get it mostly laid out. And get ourselves ready to actually build the tram line. This tram is actually a huge project. That's why I'm spreading it out over so many episodes, because I don't want to stuff it up. I don't want to rush it and end up with an absolute disaster on my hands that I have no idea how to fix. I need to have these stations built, and I needed to have a rough idea of how they're going to look before I try and build the track. So what I'll do is I'll build the station at this end of things, then build some track to go right through to the other side, and hopefully using a camera with maximum zoom and some pistons and rotors, I'll be able to target that solar axe station marker with just a little bit of aim below it. And fingers crossed, that will get us accurate enough. Who knows? To really... Oh, actually, I was about to say I might put the crosshair on, but I know that doesn't always help. I might put it on just temporarily to try and get that accurate. Or I could put... Ooh... I could use a projector-based crosshair to get things really accurate. That might be a great idea. So what I could do is put a camera down. So, say a camera down on this block, then projector behind it. But the projector can push an unconstructed wheel block or anything else that has a cross on it way out in front of the camera, And then I can line up that cross perfectly with the marker up here. I think that might be the way to do it. Suspect that's probably going to be the most accurate I can get in terms of lining up my tunnel perfectly. So there's all that craziness and plenty more to come. So I'll see you then.